occasionally giving her the satisfaction she craved. Everything I've had the good fortune to give to Sarah has come from my experience, all of the stunning failures and successes that have made up my life. My story has, in some real way, shaped Sarah's story, just like specific people at specific moments have shaped mine. I'd like to tell you about some of the ones who entered my life when I was a young man, searching for my calling. All of my life, I've been blessed by miraculous events that produce the kind of insights or epiphanies that change everything forever. Randomly happenstance, seemingly disconnected electrical zapping experiences that unalterably affect everything that follows. Zap, crackle, spark, and I'm on a new path. Like the time I was selling encyclopedias, and had been for a seemingly interminable length of time, and I had gone downtown to talk with an insurance executive who had been doggedly pursuing me to switch vocations from the disreputable dead end I was headed for to the limitless, respectable opportunity to become an insurance executive just like him. Anyone who can sell encyclopedias as well as you can would be out of his mind not to sell insurance, he told me. He was an elegant-looking man, tall, waspy, with perfectly coiffed white hair, a true executive type, unlike the type of guys I'd been working with in the book business. Those guys could have been gangsters for all anyone knew. Black shirts, one-button sport jackets, and bold checks, flashy, hip, quick-to-make-a-buck closers, or they wouldn't be around for very long. And most weren't around, except me. So, of course, the insurance executive was right. I actually can't think of another guy who sold encyclopedias for as long as I did. There was a good reason for that, but I couldn't tell you what it was then. At 32 years old, I realized now I had created my life so that nobody could or would tell me what to do. For all practical purposes, I became the invisible man. It was the 60s in San Francisco, and I was an anomaly. With all the social insanity going on around me, with all the drugs and the music and the flowers, nobody gave a second thought to an encyclopedia salesman. Nobody cared what I did. Not my boss or even my wife, until I sent in a contract. That's when they remembered I was alive and cheered me on, half-heartedly, to go out and get another one. It was enough to drive any reasonable man crazy. But for all practical purposes, and of course that's what I told myself I was doing it for, all practical purposes, I was good at it, and I could always depend on closing enough deals to keep my life and the lives of my loved ones on an even and sometimes respectably successful financial keel. In short, knowing I could sell, that I could always come up with enough deals to satisfy the pragmatic reality of my life, gave me tremendous freedom. It meant that I could sit in my car and write poetry for all anyone cared. I could take a break for a night or two at a time to sit in at a jazz club just north of Fisherman's Wharf at Pier 23, playing the saxophone with a jazz band that didn't care either if I showed up or not. But given my passion and my sometimes raw and brilliant addition to their music, they tolerated me when I did. And despite their lack of conviction, I played madly, hotly, full of love, the music busting free from my lonely heart like the wail of a lost man. What I didn't realize at the time, with 2 kids and a wife who had her own way of sitting in, her own unexpressed passions, her own longing for something more true, was that the psychic exhaustion of our cacophonous life together had become unbearable, and that the prospect of making yet another cold call on yet another unwary stranger in the cold of the night to engage them in my story about the fertile field of education awaiting them and the serious gap between where they were in their hopelessly uninformed life and where they could be with the 30 dense volumes of my magnificent Encyclopedia Americana at hand, not to mention all the other richly bound volumes that were to be theirs if they could only come to a decision. The 20 books of knowledge for the children they would certainly have one day, and the 10 books of art. But that wasn't all. For if they said yes tonight and signed the piece of paper, they would not only receive everything just mentioned, but in addition, on top of all the rest, they would be awarded, at absolutely no additional cost, the amazing, incomparable 52-volume set of the red faux leather-bound Harvard classics. All of this had become dreadful to me. It may be hard to believe, but I wasn't aware at the time how dreadful it actually was, that this 32-year-old unremarkable guy, secretly yearning to be remarkable, was about to come crashing down solidly on the floor of his life. That's what happened, literally. Some time after I said yes to the elegant white-haired elder of insurance and no to the gentleman in the black shirt and check jacket, I found myself sitting alone at a counter in a coffee shop somewhere on Webster Street in San Francisco, early on a sun-drenched, crystal-clear morning, trying to boost myself up to make a warm insurance call at Presbyterian Hospital next door on a doctor who had been referred to me, having a third cup of coffee to get my nerve up, to bolster my complete lack of self-confidence, finding myself in the strange early morning world of insurance sales, rather than the early night of encyclopedia sales that I had grown so perversely accustomed to. Still on straight commission, more visible at this time of the day, unable to hide in poetry or my saxophone, and suddenly, just like that, it happened. One moment I was sitting on the stool at the counter, and the very next I woke up with my face pressed to the cold, hard concrete floor of the coffee shop, looking at something that seemed like a guy's shoes planted directly in front of my face. I had passed out, cold, and I came face to face with that place that I have found myself in too many times in my life, where I've discovered, to my surprise, that a choice I thought I had already made was really a step toward a collision with the fact that I had not made a choice at all. I had simply done what was apparently next. The choice was still there to be made, and if I made it, the right decision, my life was never going to be the same again. And that's when the blessed moment occurred. Right there on the floor, I came to the realization that I was marking time, that I was living in a closet of my own making, a small, tight, breathless closet called my life, and I had closed the door behind me, thinking at the time that I was living in the real world. I was living in a closet, and I had just run out of air. And suddenly, God opened the door. Well, that's what it felt like to me. God opened the door, and I was called. Right there on the cold floor in a coffee shop in San Francisco, I was blessed. First I wasn't, and then I was. Blam. Just like that. And that's what set me on fire. In one moment, there was no fire, and in the next moment, there was. In one moment, I was burned out, and in the next moment, I was burning up. They told me at the hospital next door that I had had a panic attack. Get some rest, they told me. I didn't go home to rest. I didn't need to. I sold the doctor some insurance instead. It's been 36 years since I found myself with my face ignominiously pasted to the floor of a coffee shop next to Presbyterian Hospital in San Francisco. The year was 1968. 9 years after that, in 1977, I would start the company known today as eMyth Worldwide. In another 9 years, 1986, I would publish my first eMyth book. And it is now 2004, 36 years later, and I'm writing my 7th eMyth book, the one you're holding in your hands. On some level, It is inconceivable to me that the 32-year-old man I was in 1968 could be the man I am today writing this book. If I could have told him what was going to happen to his life over the next 36 years, he would have